Howdy, fellow vine trippers. I wanted to take just a moment before the show starts to let you know about a great website called Texas Wine Lover. They can be found at txwinelover.com. And they have a comprehensive website that can become your go-to site for information on Texas wines, winemakers, and the wineries that can be found in this state. They even have a phone app that you can download, and that will help you plan your route to create your own wine trip. So make sure and check them out at txwinelover.com. Welcome to Texas Under Vine, an exploratory podcast to scout out the best that Texas wine country has to offer. I'm your wine guide, Scott, and I'm here to lead you on an auditory expedition to the vineyards and wineries across the great Lone Star State. Each episode will cover a different vineyard, winery, or wine-related business operating in Texas. You'll hear interviews, descriptions, and details about each location that will excite you to visit and experience them for yourself. Ready to plan a wine tour? Use these episodes to choose the most interesting spots for you and your friends to check out. Most of all, enjoy hearing about the rapidly growing wine industry in the state and what makes our wines and wineries the best. Howdy, fellow vine tripper. Welcome to episode 19 for Texas Under Vine. For this episode, I continue highlighting some newer wine destinations, and today I traveled just west of the Johnson City area to visit a new winery called Elisa Christopher Wines. So this particular winery is owned by Elisa and Christopher Jones. Both have moved into the wine industry after pursuing other careers. Although Elisa did have a lot of background in wine and grape growing and things like that, they did actually start this as a second career. They actually have a great little story in that they reconnected as adults. They were actually childhood friends that actually parted, went different ways when their parents moved to different places, and they found each other again later in life. You'll hear a little bit more about their story in the interview, but it's a great reconnection story as they came together to start this project. Their goal is to pursue sparkling wine production. And they're currently building towards that goal by purchasing equipment, building out their production facility, which they affectionately call the Sparkling Barn. Their location is not directly on the 290 Wine Road, but it is off just a few miles, and there are several wineries actually down that same road. It's a great property. It's a beautiful drive down the road to get there. Their goal is not to be a large, big, impersonal style winery, but a simple family farmhouse style boutique winery that you'll want to go a little bit off the road to make a point to visit. They're very early on in their building process, so they have built a small tasting room. They have some great outdoor space for enjoying some wine out among the trees if the weather is nice. They have plans to continue building a bigger tasting room and actually expanding their production facilities, especially for the sparkling production. They're a product of the Kerrville Hills Incubator Project that has helped many new small wineries begin their production without having to have everything built out itself before they begin. It saves a lot on that capital investment. They're very dedicated to making 100% Texas sparkling wines, with grapes only sourced here from the state. They also want to use their equipment to help other wineries produce sparkling wines without having to buy all of their own expensive equipment. Their goal is to begin planting some estate vines within the next couple of years so that they can harvest some of their grapes there, but also still pull some from other places like the High Plains. And with several other wineries on that 9-minute drive to their location, it's about 9 minutes from 290 to their location. There's several different places you can stop in and visit. And they like to say that it's kind of a small little wine trail of its own. So when I went down to visit, I was able to sit down, hang out with Elisa and Chris in their temporary tasting room. Let's take a moment just to hear from them about this new venture they've started. So tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get into the wine industry?
So I grew up drinking wine. My dad would always ask, what do you smell? What do you taste in there? Had a career working for the federal government for 25 years. And I would travel a lot for work. And I would travel to vineyards in Italy and France and kind of build some of that wine knowledge. So we have some family property outside of College Station, Texas. I helped my dad plant his Blanc de Bois vineyard in 2007. And that kind of fueled some of my interest in it. Then I did my sommelier certification. And in 2012, I decided that really wasn't where I wanted to be. So I did Sonoma State's wine business program. And then I did Texas Tech's winemaking programs. My dad said, hey, I think you'd really like it. And I absolutely fell in love, knew that's where I really wanted to be. So I think probably all of my travels influenced some of our winemaking styles. And then for Chris,
I'm very much along for the ride. I did go through the Texas Tech winemaking certification class, and but for the most part, it was kind of conditions of us getting together, getting married, was moving to Texas and starting a winery. And I was like, okay, there are worse things I can be stuck doing. And so I've been learning a lot along the way. I compare it to like kind of learning a language. When you first learn it, you start to understand it when people speak it, but I can't speak it yet. So, but it's been a good adventure. I've spent some time helping out in cellars now and learned a lot about operations, but, and then I kind of understand what's going on and I can inject some at least poignant questions.
The Chris's background is really in design, which has been very helpful as we start to build our next phase, which is our first edition of production building, because we want to focus on sparkling wine, and we can get into some more of that later. But
my background is a landscape architect and planner. Once we found the property, and even when we were looking at other properties, I was sketching out site plans, figuring out what the best flow was, best views, where we could locate stuff. And so the hard part is every site that we looked at, it's like, I liked it because I already had a plan for it. And so when those didn't come to fruition, it was always a disappointment. But really, I mean, Elisa, one of the things, her father is a part of our venture. So he's been the biggest influence on this. And his experience goes back to growing up kind of in the Bay Area around Napa when he was in high school. And so that's why it's always been around and a part of her life. So,
but I was from Texas, went to Texas A&M. My dad did leave California and come to Texas and went to Texas A&M as well. But Chris and I went to elementary school together, church and Sunday school.
We were both military brats. And so her dad was a military brat, went into the military, and then both of us were military brats. And so we were in the 1st through 4th grade together in Sunday school, growing up in Nebraska. And so 6 days a week. And then our dad both got orders. And I remember asking my mom at the time, am I going to be stuck with Elisa in the 5th grade? Because we were moving to San Antonio, but they ended up moving to Alabama. But so I was kind of relieved at that point that I wasn't going to be stuck with her. Little did I know that we would reconnect later in life and be stuck together for the rest of our lives. So
yeah,
who knew exactly? So, but that's kind of how we got here today.
All right. Well, tell me a little bit about this location's history. How'd you get it started?
Well, that was interesting. So we hired our broker, Anders Realty, local in Johnson City, to kind of help us find a piece of land. And this was back in 2020 when we moved out here, or I moved out here. And there was some properties for sale, not a lot. We're still trying to figure out exactly how big and what we wanted. So we were kind of slow rolling it, and
but do it a minimum size,
right? And so, and as we were looking, and we aren't sure on 290, off 290. And then as we started realizing some of the financials of a few things and timing, we're like, okay, let's not stress over buying something. Little did we know there was going to be basically a mini run on land back then, and then there was nothing available. And so when we started getting more serious in 21, there were just one-offs here and there, and they weren't on the market for very long. There were even properties that when we were kind of dragging our feet that were on the market for almost a year. And then we finally were ready. It's like, okay, let's go look at it. Made an appointment, sold before we could make it out to the property. And so we were starting to get a little frustrated, and we thought land was starting to get a little overpriced. People were very proud of the land that they had. And so we were kind of getting frustrated, and we were decided to go to another winery down the road here, Untamed, and because we hadn't been there yet and wanted to kind of see what their experience was. Well, we were leaving Fredericksburg.
We said, let's take the back road.
Let's take the back road, 2721. Well, it's Olive Road in Fredericksburg, but turns into 2721. And we're driving, and all of a sudden I look over and I see a for sale sign, and Elisa slams on the brakes, and we swear we left skid marks on the road. We back up, and sure enough, there's a for sale sign. It turns out that it was actually our broker's partner that was listing it. And so we literally called him up
on a Sunday.
On a Sunday on the side of the road, and we asked him about it. And he's like, he says, that listing just came up, and he says it was a little far off of 290, so I wasn't quite sure yet. And we're like, we love it. We actually at that point decided we really didn't want to be on 290. We wanted to stay away from kind of the bachelorette parties and stuff. And really, when we go to Napa, when Elisa takes me to Napa, she takes me, she doesn't hit all the main ones. We go off the beaten path, and we go to some of the more, I'd say, lack of a better word, higher end and tasting rooms, and you get to experience the countryside a little more, and you're not in.
And that's what we liked. It wasn't, didn't feel like a rush. You could actually sit, enjoy your wine, learn something not only about the wine, but about the people that work there, whether we were sitting down with winemakers or tasting room managers. We loved that experience. So we said, that would be what we want for people. Like, they get to feel like they're coming in, they get to know us, they get to know, our staff, but really have that more intimate experience than, hey, we need to hurry out and rush because the next tour bus is coming in.
Right. And so one of the things that we kind of decided on as we were kind of branding ourselves, we really wanted to feel like you were coming over to a farmhouse, a home, and that, we said, come for the wine, but stay for the company. And so we always have that mantra in the back of our mind when we're making decisions, like, is this someplace that people are not going to want to leave? That they feel like, oh, the next group's coming in, they need our table. And so this location, I think, really lended itself to that. And then so we pretty much got it under contract within about a week or two later. And then it was right when we were getting ready to head to France for our spring break. The last spring break trip we knew we were going to be able to take, knowing that we had wine basically in bottle. We're going in the bottle. And so had a great time in France. But then this is also when wildfires started popping up around, and we start getting text messages from both our broker and friends saying the winery's on fire. We're like, whoa. Where we're going here in France? Or is it, what are you talking about? And it's like, no, a mile down the road, there's 1,000 acre. Yeah. So about 2-3 miles down the road, there's about 1,000 acre fire. And we're like, we're getting called. It's okay. It's going away from where you guys are. You don't need to worry. I think the seller was more worried than we were. But we were able to close on the property, and then her father and I just nonstop started working on the property.
And we built the tasting room that you're sitting in now, which is kind of our temporary tasting room. And that was just a way so we could get started. I needed some air conditioning space. This is Texas. So we said, we've got some really great oaks out here. We've got a lot of great seating, but let's have a small indoor space so we could kind of run operations.
So and there was a old hunting shed that was here on the property. Pretty much the day we closed, we demoed it, and then this was a kit that we had ordered. And so pretty much the following day, my father-in-law were out here going vertical with it and putting it together. And then we had it ready the last weekend of July, and we moved in opened for sales the first weekend of August. So from pretty much end of April to the beginning of August is what it took to get this built.
And eventually we'll build a larger tasting room. Right now, we're focused on production facility because we really want to focus on making not only still wine, but traditional method sparkling, so method champenois.
And so that's kind of what led to the barn. Right now, we've been making wine at the Kirby Hills Incubator. It's been a great opportunity where you get to learn while doing it yourself. And so it's been a great experience for us. But during that process, we had hired Michael Dominguez, who used to be the manager at Gruet Sparkling House in New Mexico. And he's been helping us out getting our sparkling line off the ground. And so we were making this such a large investment in that and learning that and sourcing equipment that, we decided it's like, okay, do we rip the Band-Aid off and start our own production here? Or do we delay that? And so sparkling is very temperamental. And so
it's like having a toddler. It does not like change. Things such as like a slight temperature change because you left a garage door open does not like that at all. So we said, okay, we need to be able to have like full control and have space that is very undisturbed.
Yeah, have it basically a space that isn't going to have the traffic of other winemakers coming through and stuff. So what was supposed to be basically 1,000 square foot barn for a tractor and a lawnmower turned into now a 4,000 square foot production building that will have our tank room, basically 1,000 square feet of tank room. We'll have a lab, and then 2,000 square feet of barrel room and storage for the sparkling, and basically our riddling and disgorging to be able to process all that sparkling, and then a small 1,000 square foot barn that's been added onto it. So,
and we're really excited about the sparkling. There have been other people doing it in Texas, kind of doing it by hand, which I admire them because I certainly don't want to riddle bottles by hand. But to my knowledge, we will be some of the first with all of the equipment to do such a line.
So as we started in 2020 making wine. It ended up being a little bit of a COVID project. So Elisa moved here in August of 2019. And then my son and I, we moved out here January of 2020. And we were planned to get married March 28th.
Ironically, just around the corner from where we are.
Little did we know 2 weeks before that COVID would come. And so we went from a wedding of about 110 to 7, including us. And I remember telling us, when the wedding's over, let's just slow things down and take a breath and relax. About 2 weeks into COVID, I was like, wow, we have all this free time.
Because we were both working from home.
That all of our commute time is now gone. And I was taking the wine classes, and it's like, your retirement's coming up in a year or two. Let's start small and kind of see how it goes. And
so our idea of starting small was to do, I think we
ended up doing 9 tons of red.
Go big or go home.
Right. And so,
but that way we would have a product that we had made to open. We didn't really want to buy shiners with somebody else's name on it. I mean, I think that's a great way for other people to get started, but I don't know. We're passionate about,
we're going to do it. Yeah. We just wanted to do it. And so we started that process, and with me not necessarily being really a wine drinker, Elisa decided, well, champagne is a real good gateway drug to wine. And so she got me, I always kind of liked champagne, but she really introduced me to some really good quality champagne. I was like, I love this stuff. So she's like, you know what? Let's make some sparkling for you too. So we decided, yeah, let's do it. So we started doing the research, and we're like, okay, yeah, we can figure this out. And then started looking into the cost, and we're like, wow. And then we met Michael, and we decided, if we're going to do it, let's do it. And so let's do it right and not just kind of cowboy it. And so we hired Michael and really kind of started focusing in on it, and then realized, okay, we dipped, not even a toe, but a foot in it. Let's just do it.
Let's just dive off the whole thing.
So talked to the bank and grew the barn into a actual production facility, and it's going. So we've got equipment ordered now coming from France, and we should be ready to process
our first batch. So in 2022, we did Trebbiano. And somebody might say, well, why did you start with that? Well, Chardonnay is very difficult to get in Texas because it's contracted out for several years. Pinot Noir, we hadn't focused on learning as much about Texas Pinot Noir. So I said, Trebbiano I know does well here. I had it in southern France as a sparkling wine. So let's just give that a try to start off with. So we did, and we have that sitting in cages at our wine storage place in Stonewall, and it's kind of aging.
1,300 bottles right now, sparkling. And it was a little traumatic as well. And what Elisa didn't say, this was our second attempt. Our first attempt
Before our consultant.
was before we hired our consultant. And
We had a big ice storm.
And of course, when we had it all set up and ready to go, it was when we were hitting 20-degree temperatures, and the yeast just basically died off or stalled. And so it was just too cold, and it was a struggle to try to get it to warm up. And so the second go around, we made it, we got it all in the bottle. Everything looked great. And then we waited about a month, and we go to check to see if we've got any pressure buildup. We have no pressure buildup. And we're like, oh my God, not again. And so what was funny is that I brought the bottle into the tasting room to just kind of show Elisa. I was like, it's not going. And, we tasted it just to see how it was tasting. And
It tasted fine.
It tasted fine. It was yeasty because there's still yeast in there. And so this was on a Sunday, and Elisa kind of forgot about the bottle when she was cleaning up and just kind of left it there, came home.
It was spring break. We had other plans, and my brain was already on that.
So, yeah, we flew out to hang out with her brother and sister-in-law. And then we get back, and Elisa's like, I forgot about this bottle. And she looks, and all of a sudden I get a text message, and there's the bottle with bubbles going up. It started.
Any other bottle of wine that you would have left open for 7 days would be disgusting, turned to vinegar, you'd have to throw it out. So I tasted it, and it tasted great. So I shook it up, and I could see even more bubbles, fermentation. So I was like, it's a temperature issue. We need to go to wine storage, turn up the temperature. We did. We
did a little bit.
Pressure.
Checked it again. It wasn't working. So it was like, okay, let's turn it up again. And then a bottle that we had already tried was starting to bubble that we had left in our storage area. And so we're like, okay, we think we have the temperature. We gave it a few more weeks, tested it. We were up to 2 bars, and then we gave it another 2 weeks.
We just checked it Friday. We were up to 4, and then and once we get up to 6, we'll be in a good spot for that.
Good spot. So it's working finally, And so
that made that particular bottle happy. But this year we're going to even do Pinot Noir. So we're still going to do Trebbiano. We're going to do Pinot Noir, traditional champagne grape. And
then looking for more traditional champagne grapes that we can find in Texas. We've had people ask, well, have you thought about just going to California or even New Mexico? And we're like, no, if it's just want to stick with Texas, we want to make a Texas sparkling and not a pet nat.
And, I always tell people, and they say, why don't you go get some fruit from California? So, well, if I wanted to get fruit from California, I'd just make wine in California. I wouldn't necessarily make Texas wine. And I wanted to make Texas wine. This is, despite my dad being military, I was born in Texas. This is where I'm from. I think Texas does great things. So why not stick with Texas grapes?
So we're real excited about bringing production of sparkling to Texas right now. If you are able to find traditional method, it's being processed. The stills are probably made here, but it's being processed in California. And we toured that facility, and it was crazy intimidating.
And it was definitely a little like the Wizard of Oz, where you see other wineries that you're like, I didn't know that was made here. So
it was very educational for us. It was nice meeting the people there. We don't want to become that where they're producing, 100,000 cases at a time.
But we want to help others.
Yeah, so we plan on opening up the service so that other small winemakers out here can do a traditional method, sparkling, and have that available to them.
We know of 2 this year that we're going to be helping out with some of the stuff that they've been working on. So we're pretty excited about that.
We want to grow it, but it's not going to be our core business. We'll basically have a capacity, and then as we increase our volume, we'll decrease the volume of who we're helping, but we'll always kind of want to get people going as much as we can.
You carry that forward from the Carvel incubator. So
exactly, yes, and very much so. It's like
you got to play it forward some,
right? And what was interesting from my perspective, moving out here and getting to meet all the winemakers and wineries out here, it's very collaborative out here. It's very, there are egos, and everyone wants to be the best, but at the same time, they don't want to be the best at the detriment of someone else. It only takes one real bad wine to kind of ruin the whole area.
People are still saying Texas wine is bad, and they haven't had a Texas wine since the late 80s, early 90s. So it's kind of what can we do to help change that perspective as
And
well?
so it was great down in Kerrville. They're doing that by introducing basically winemaking to all these other people who have a passion for it. Strangely enough, it seems like almost all of the winemakers he's introducing are women winemakers and women owners. And so it's which is great. And it has just been great to see that collaboration, and we get it from people who aren't even a part of the incubator. So it's been a really good experience, and we want everybody to do well, because everybody's going to be different anyway. But as long as they're doing well, that traffic is going to help other people too.
I mean, that's the way Oregon succeeded, is they all collaborated and got together, and Texas needs to do the same. I mean, we're getting there. I think we are definitely there, but we're not Oregon there, but we will be.
Yes.
So.
And we're on our way to, I think we're on our way to Napa, really, when you look at some of the quality that you see out there. So, and what I found interesting is, so during this whole adventure of, hey, we're going to make wine, and I'm like, okay, not really knowing what that entails, Elisa introduced me to this wonderful documentary called Decanted. And I loosely call it a documentary. It doesn't feel like a documentary, really. And they follow several winemakers through Napa. They follow basically a startup looking to buy a winery and to start their own label, which was really fascinating. Side note, it turns out that family was friends with Elisa's grandfather in the Rio Grande, where they were both citrus farmers. So that was a Chalice winery, so that was fascinating in itself. But it was interesting to see, them talking to each of these winemakers and wineries. And I'm like, okay, nothing, out of the ordinary, except for it's like lots and lots of money, big money being invested. And then this one winery, it was Bell Vineyards, I think. And this guy, interviewing him, and he's like, so I've been doing this for 40 years. I'm like, okay, that's a good career. And he's like, which means I've only done this 40 times. And at that point, kind of skipped a beat, was, short of breath. And I'm like, I'm not going to get 40 tries at this. And because we're starting later in life, this is second career. And I'm like, what have we gotten ourselves into? And it was at that point we, started then really working at the incubator. And then you realize that's when I realized how collaborative it was. Because if you're not learning from other people, you're only going to get so many tries. It's going to be impossible to be successful without standing on the shoulders of the people that came before you. And it seems like everyone out here understands that you're only going to get so far. But if you pass that forward, pass that along, and help other people, that you can kind of continue that along. But that was a very much a gulping moment where I was like, oh my Lord, I don't want to be doing this till the day I die. I'd like to be able to maybe hand this off and say we were successful.
So is there a story behind the name of the location?
So yeah, I'll take that one. Elisa shot down about 50 to 80 names that I had come up with. I used to design master plan communities, and every once in a while we get asked to come up with a list of names. So group of us would sit around and we just start spitballing different things, looking at maps of things going on in the area. We didn't have the property to go, okay, this is a creek that runs through it, or this is a bluff that's been named. So we really had to think more about us and the family, or just the region. So everything was taken. I would rattle off names. She's like, taken. Oh, that's horrible. Taken. And we needed to file paperwork. And so we started with Jones Hens, her maiden name and our last name. And we started that with the LLC, and we kept looking at other stuff, and everything was getting shut. And we're getting to the point where, okay, we're going to need a label and a logo. And so, it's kind of simple to do names, because it's easy to do our names because no one else is going to have it really. And so that kind of became a placeholder, Elisa Christopher. And so we did that, and we started just using that kind of generically, and people started saying, oh, it rolls off the tongue really well. And we had talked to a branding person that we were looking at hiring, and his mantra is, the wine is for other people. They buy the wine. They want to feel as though they're owning it. If your name's on it, they feel as though you still own it. And we didn't disagree with it. But then as we started going down the road, we actually kind of really changed our mind on that, where we feel as though they're buying into us and joining the family. And Elisa's got a large family out here. And so we really wanted to kind of keep with that family. And so we decided to stick with the name Elisa Christopher. And then the logo is an oak tree. And so
initially I was like, everybody had an oak tree. Like, why do you want to do that?
But the inspiration for my perspective was, I come from a fairly small family. Elisa comes from a very large family. Her dad's into genealogy and the family tree. Well, on their property out near College Station, they have a 800-year-old oak tree on the property, and it is gorgeous. The branches come back down to the ground and then bend back up. And to me, it just plays into the genealogy of the family tree. It, to me, is, I think of family trees and this being a family adventure. And I just love the picture of this giant oak tree that's been on the property for over 800 years. Their family's got one of the longest.
One of the old oaks of Texas.
Yeah. And has owned the land for over 150 years as a ranchers. And so we decided, okay, I think we can do an oak tree, but really have it say a little bit about ourselves because it's playing off the family. And so we hired an artist to kind of help us with the logo and gave some feedback. And what we were getting wasn't working for us. And I finally told Elisa, like, this is their last try. We're going somewhere else. And the last try was the best try. And
they really knocked it out.
They knocked it out of the park for us. And what we liked about it was when you look at the logo, the base, the roots, reminds me of the Eiffel Tower in France. And so to me, it's the influence that Elisa had really is traveling around the world and most of her time just relaxing in the...
From 97 to 2020, I was in France every single year at some point.
To me, it's a very kind of deco kind of style, which I really like. And then the tree above the ground is the oak tree and the leaves spreading out, but it also, the way it spreads is also somewhat reminiscent of a vine too. So depending on how you look at it. And so it plays off of what we're doing with the vines and then also just that family oak tree. And so we thought that they really knocked it out of the park. And so we were very happy with that. So it's an oak tree, a little bit of a cliche for Texas, but at the same time, we felt as though it had a very unique kind of spin to it. So that's where that came out. And we've been, real happy with it. I still think it would have been fun to come up with a unique name, but Elisa Christopher does roll off the tongue. And we do want people to feel that they're coming over to our house and enjoying a weekend, like a picnic. And so where do you source your grapes?
So almost all of our grapes right now are sourced from High Plains. We will eventually plant on this property Merlot and Chardonnay to start. We've cleared about 13 acres so far. Of course, our production takes up some of that, but we're rehabbing the soil out here as all of that lovely cedar that grows so well in Central Texas really sucks up the nitrogen. So we said, okay, we'll take time to kind of plant a cover crop and get things growing with some native grasses. But our High Plains grapes, we worked really well with guys at Canton County Vineyards near La Mesa, Texas. We're working with Reddy. We worked with Barbara at Siboney to actually, we've shared some fruit from Chalice Vineyards, and we've been really grateful to have that. Malbec, we've had some Merlot from some other vineyards. So, we continue to work with vineyards as we go along, just kind of seeing, okay, what grapes are available and what do we have this last year. Being part of the incubator was great because we were able to kind of pull from some other growers as fruit was a little more challenging this year, but we were able to make some varietals and try some things that we hadn't done in the past. So that was kind of fun.
And eventually, we, like Elisa said, we'll have our own estate grapes that we will then supplement with outside. I think we'll always have that as a source. But right now we have 43 acres of land. And then we're planned probably to grow at about 12 acres under vine, with the ability to go up to probably 16, 17 if we ever saw the need for it. But really, we wanted this to also keep a significant amount of open space on the property. We have kind of a little swale that runs through the property. So when we do get some significant rains, we have a flow. We plan on leaving that more natural, leaving the oaks and the cedars in that location, and even using it to kind of treat a lot of just our stormwater runoff and even affluent water coming from the production facility into some bioswales and little ponds, and then eventually into an irrigation lake. And then so there'll always be that kind of pastoral feel to a good portion of the property. And then having some vines also. So as you drive in, you get the best of the hill country. I think the grapevines that you see, and then just, nice pasture, oaks and cedars, and just plenty of places just to sit outside.
And you've talked a little bit about your production facility that you're going to build here. And so you are right now not producing on site, but you do plan to, or you're going to do your...
This harvest will be produced on site.
Okay. What are your favorite wines that you make?
So for me, I would say I love Merlot. I find it slightly ironic that Merlot, of course, named after the marrow bird. I really despise birds, despite the fact that we're building some bird habitats here. But I really think that grape is so versatile. It not only grows well in Texas, can really make some fantastic wines. Very approachable, softer. When people say, oh, I don't like Merlot, I'm like, this is not your airplane Merlot that you got because it was the red wine available. No, this is a lot more elegant in style and in nature. So I love that. And then I love the wine that I made really for my dad. It's called the Patriarch, as my dad is kind of the head of the family. And it is a 50-50. This time, it is a 50-50 blend of Merlot and Malbec done in 75% New French oak. And it is big, it is bold, and it really just screams, hey, come drink this really bold red wine and just fall in love with it. And so those are my two favorites.
So being new to wine, still relatively speaking, surprisingly, my favorite is our Malbec. And what I like about that is this combination of fruit and spice, where when it starts to warm up, the fruit gets real jammy. You can smell it, taste it. But what I like is that there's this little bit of spice to it. And I describe it almost like a black pepper, but it reminds me of the burnt tips of brisket. And so every time I smell it and taste it, my mouth just starts to water thinking about getting some brisket. And I feel like I'm drinking it, drinking brisket. And so that's my favorite. I mean, I literally, when I smell it, it's like, oh, I really want some barbecue right now. And so that's my favorite. And then I also really kind of like our Vermentino. And what was interesting is, even though I love sparkling, I'm not big into the whites. And when we were kind of doing our tastings and our trials to see how the wine was progressing, I kind of told Elisa, do I really need to be a part of this? It's like, I have nothing to contribute.
I said, everybody has an opinion, though.
So her and John Riverberg, some of the staff are going through the tastings. I'm just kind of sitting in the corner doing it. And I grab the white and I'm like, okay, I smell it. I'm like, okay. And I take a taste, and the three of them are talking, and all of a sudden it's like, ooh. And they stop and they look, and I'm like, this is really good. This is refreshing. It's crisp. I was just blown away by it. And for us, it's like became that perfect kind of little summer sipper. But that one was a surprise for me. But I still, when it's hot, it's like, yes, I like that. But when I start to get a little hungry, it's like, oh, I want some of that Malbec and just dream of brisket.
So what are some of your most popular wines with your customers? What do you have a hard time keeping in stock?
Definitely the Malbec. The Patriarch wine has definitely been a seller because we started opening that up to non-club just about a month ago. And then our rosé gets to be very popular as well, not only because it gets warmer outside, but our rosé we left on the skins for a little bit of extra time that gave it a little more body. So it's something that's more than just your porch pounder, that you can actually pair really well with food. So we've had a lot of folks say, hey, I'm going to take a couple more bottles of that and take that home with me.
Yeah, they ended up doing really well for the holidays because it went great with ham, it went great with turkey, even lamb. And so it really did really well then. And then when Easter was coming, it started picking up again because of traditional kind of Easter dinners. And so, but yeah, the people really, really like the color, even though it's darker than a typical rosé, but everyone comments on it. And then from my perspective, when we looked at our label design, we wanted to do a rose gold foil, and it matched it perfectly. I mean, it was just kind of, as a designer, I thought that worked out really well too. So.
What types of things do you do here on site if people want to come visit? You've got the tasting. You've got some outdoor seating, some indoor seating. Do y'all host any kind of events or things like that yet?
Just club events for our wine club. We do wine club pickup party events. For example, we have one coming up May the 20th. And then we actually have an intern coming this summer for hospitality who's going to help us plan one of our first wine dinners that we'll be able to do after harvest up in the production facility. So look for more events. We've been open less than a year, so we're definitely working on kind of expanding some of their opportunities for folks when they come out here.
Yeah, but right now we're set up to do indoor tastings. We can handle groups of about 8 inside. And
but as it is a small space, we always say, okay, reservations recommended. If you want to sit inside, especially as it's getting warmer outside, please make a reservation. That's going to guarantee you a spot in.
Yeah. And then we've got various seating opportunities outside. We have some great Adirondack chairs and shade. We have a table for 6 with an umbrella, and then we have a lounge area, sectional.
And we have an outside seating for 8 as well.
Right.
And there's some oak trees.
So we can handle a decent number of people all at once, but and we can handle what I would say medium-sized groups that come through. But yeah, for indoor space, go ahead and make the reservation. But we generally have fans and stuff set up, and then when it's colder outside, we have heaters too. So and it's not too bad with the heater. So.
Tell me about your wine club. So you mentioned you have a wine club. So tell me a little bit about what are the details and how does somebody become a member? Are there certain shipments or how does that all work?
So we have a 3, 6, and 12 bottle club. All we ask of folks is that they take at least 2 shipments when they sign up for the club. They can come pick them up on site, or we can ship to a number of places within Texas and outside of Texas. So our wine club dates are November, February, and then late April, early May timeframe, just to try and beat that heat for that last shipment. And our November is so that you have wine in time for Thanksgiving. Then you can start kind of looking at what you want for the holidays. With our 3-bottle club membership, you get a discount on wines. With our 6 and 12 bottle clubs, you can actually choose your wines that you would like for those shipments. And then as well as you get the discount on wines.
And the 3 bottles can be more of a winemaker's choice, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah, okay. We'll always make selections, but if you're in the 6 and 12, you can go in and modify your account. The best way to sign up, either you can come into the tasting room, fill out paperwork, or we've had plenty of folks decide to sign up online after they've come tasted the wines. You can always sign up online and be part of the club that way.
And even in the tasting room, we have a little QR code so you can scan it with your phone and it takes you right to the club membership. As a club member, you also get a free tasting once a month.
Yes.
So,
and then if somebody decided that, okay, this sounds really cool, I want to go check this out and do a tasting. Tell me a little bit about what a tasting looks like. So fees, what type of wines do they get?
So right now we have 4 wines for $25 on the menu, and then we usually pour something off menu. Kind of what we've selected for the day on what we're going to pour. So that'll give people a chance to try some other of our kind of smaller production lots that we have available.
And we do, again, recommend reservations for that. What about your operating hours? What are the times that people can come out?
So we are open right now Saturdays from 11 to 4:30 and Sundays from 12:30 to 4. And then right after Memorial Day weekend, we'll also be open Fridays from 12:30 to 4.
Family friendly, under 21 allowed, or are you going to only be adult?
No, we do allow people to bring in outside food, bring in children. We just ask for no dogs right now because even though we do have a lot of space, not everybody finds, and we have a dog. We personally love dogs, but not everybody finds them as friendly. So it just keeps it simple. But given that we have a kid of our own, we definitely allow kids. Later, when we start doing tours of the production facility, that will be a no kids tour. And that's simply just because there's a lot of machinery and equipment.
Liability.
Yeah, we have a tree swing for our son. So there's a tree swing for kids to swing on and hang out.
And you don't have to be a kid to use the swing. We've also had a lot of
more senior
folks that love swings, and they tend to hang out on that too.
Do you offer any kind of like small bites or food options or anything for anyone?
So right now, we experimented that with a little bit this fall and didn't find it very successful. So we may open that again in the future. But yes, people are welcome to bring their own picnic. We've had folks sit in our lounge area, and they pulled out some pretty awesome looking spreads for sure.
Elaborate spreads. So,
And you mentioned it a moment ago, but just want to make sure I get that covered as well. Maximum group size is typically around 8 for indoors.
Yeah, so we have 2 smaller tables indoors, and we can fit 8 total in the room. If people want to be all together, you'd all be in the same room, but in kind of 2 separate areas. But we can do 2 also groups of 5 at each one of the tables too. It's a little tight fit, but hopefully if you're coming wine drinking, you love the people you're drinking with.
Yeah.
So busy and slow seasons, what's the best time to come visit?
So slow seasons for us are January and August, in part because January, it's Texas. It can be completely sunny or it can be rainy.
And people recovering from the
holidays and all of those good intentions, where people are not going to drink. I don't know those people, but, they do exist out there, I've heard. And then August tends to be a little bit slower because school's starting back. People are finishing up those last minute summer vacations. And it's also really hot. So that tends to be a slower period of time. But I would say probably best times for weather, of course, April, May, and then kind of October timeframe. But we'd love to see folks anytime.
Now, let's say people can't get out here for whatever reason, but they do want to try your wines. How can they taste your wines if they can't get here?
They can definitely buy wines on our website. We stopped shipping in May, just depending on the weather. You can pay for upgraded shipping, which would be cold chain. It does cost a lot of money. Sometimes I get it. I've done it from California for a particular wine that I had to have and try. So that opportunity is there. But we really recommend if you're going to ship, wait till October and do October to May. And I would even say that for any Texas winery because you don't want your wines cooked by the time they come to you. But yes, please order online. And even if you don't have time, you could order online. Say you want to pick it up. Give us a call when you're on your way here and just say, hey, I don't have time for tasting. I've ordered it online. I just want to pick up. And we're happy to help.
We're starting to look at some select restaurants and wine bars able to serve. Right now, I think we're going to be served at a new location in Fredericksburg.
Yes, near Altstadt.
Near Altstadt. So once they're open. One of the things that I did want to talk about is since we're off the beaten path is that we're also looking at kind of even marketing this area as almost its own little trail. One of the things that we liked about it was that you're not on 290, but what's nice is that we're not isolated by ourselves. So right now where we're located, we're
about a 9-minute drive off of 290.
And we're halfway between Southold Cellars, Farm and Cellars, and Sandy Road Vineyards. And so, I mean, literally, I think 1.5 miles from both of them. So when you're on 290, if you just head north off of 1320, which is Sandy Road.
1320, and then you're going to turn left onto 2721, and we are on 27.
And on 1320, you'll go past Untamed, West Cave. There's a new winery that will be opening up soon called Portree, and then Sandy Road Vineyards. Then you'll hit ourselves, and then you'll hit Southold. So what's nice about that is you can hit multiple wineries if you want at a real small distance and not be right in the middle of all the chaos that is 290. So
tell me a little bit about your plans for future growth. I know you've talked about the production facility and the sparkling, but what are your big arching plans for this place?
So as far as our plans go right now, So right now we're in our temporary tasting room. It is temporary. We've actually designed this to actually move it off-site. Although we've had some customers say that
Customers and wine club members that would be very disappointed
if we moved it off-site, but that was the initial plan. But that was kind of phase one. Phase two was building what was going to be a barn, but our temporary production, which we kind of call it the sparkling barn, because that was the inspiration for growing that. And that will be ready here at hopefully the end of the month for us to be able to start moving equipment in.
So end of May, if you're listening.
Yeah.
May of 2023.
And so that was the next phase. And then after that, we plan on now in 25, start planting and starting with 2 acres at a time, probably each year, and growing that. The plan from there is a little more flexible. We plan on building essentially what would be about a feasible 15,000 square foot permanent production and storage facility. But a part of that would also be about a 3,000 square foot tasting room and series of different tasting experiences. And that would probably come online as funds are available after the production build. Our sparkling barn is done. We would do the more permanent tasting room and permanent facilities. After that, whether we do phase one of the main production is one idea, or the other is kind of my pet project would be a wedding venue and separate kind of private tasting experience. And what I like about that, it's going to be set in the vines, away from production, away from winery guests, really kind of isolated by itself, but also in amongst the oaks and the cedars. It's going to be that border between those two environments. And so
everything will be kind of phased in over time as we continue to grow.
But we really want to design it as almost like a kind of a family farm compound, where it's a series of buildings and experiences. And then once that's done, the kind of final piece of the puzzle would be, we really like to do what we would call kind of the clubhouse, and it would be kind of fashioned after a house, and we would like to do a demonstration kitchen in there so we could do cooking classes. We'd have private rooms for different events and people to be able to lease out for corporate events. And then this kind of fun, elaborate lawn and for people to just kind of hang out in the backyard and be able to host dinners outside and stuff like that. And amongst being able to walk the grounds, we plan on having a small lake out here to be able to irrigate everything. And, if our son wanted to do a little fishing, so a little fun little stuff like that, to where you just felt like you never wanted to leave.
Well, we get to the big question now. So what would you say, in your opinion, is the number one thing that would attract customers to come check out Elisa Christopher Wines?
I would say, number one, it's the wine. We are making high quality wine here, award-winning wines as well, because we won awards on some of those. And it's a chance to come enjoy your wine in the peace and quiet that you came out to the hill country for, and just have a relaxing atmosphere, learn something, taste some great wine, meet some new friends.
Experience, both quality of the experience of the wine, but quality experience of the environment, and one-on-one time with Elisa and myself, and just that kind of real personal, intimate experience.
Although they may be a new kid on the block, they're no strangers to the wine industry and are already producing high-quality wines and, as Chris said a moment ago, an intimate tasting experience at their property. They have great goals to produce Texas sparkling wine and have already invested a lot of capital towards purchasing the needed equipment. They're already building out that production space needed for that venture. They also possess a great collaborative spirit, and they're happy to help other winemakers utilize their investment in the expensive equipment that they've put in by using it for their own sparkling production. Elisa and Chris are a delight to share a glass of wine with, and you definitely cannot go wrong with setting up a time to visit their location. Drink some great wine, and you get to visit with the winemakers themselves as you do it. And with so many great wine destinations on the little road out to their place, you can easily make a fun little road trip out of it. Now, when you decide to go make a visit, first make sure to check out their website. It's ElisaChristopherWines.com. That's ElisaChristopherWines.com. There, you can make reservations, and I do recommend that. That way you make sure you're there with them and they're able to handle you. But you can make reservations for a tasting, get more info on the wines that you'll taste when you visit. You're going to see their reconnection story, and you'll be able to find out about the wines they're offering and how to join their wine club if you really like it. Don't forget, when you go see them, make sure you tell them you heard about them on this podcast, Texas Under Vine. Well, I fell in love with the 21 Patriarch wine that Elisa mentioned and dedicated to her father. I bought a bottle of that for my podcast wine library for this very episode. And so now I'm off to explore some more of Texas and bring even more great wine destination info to you. If you're enjoying the podcast, would you please consider taking a moment to leave me a rating and or a review wherever you get the podcast? It really helps me get the info out to even more wine-interested people in Texas who want to know more about these great Texas wine destinations that we have. And I'd also like to give a shout out to my latest supporter on Patreon, June R. Thanks so much for helping me share the greatness of Texas wine with the world. Well, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, follow my socials to be notified whenever the next episode is posted. And until next time, happy trails and bottoms up, y'all. Thanks for listening to Texas Under Vine. We strive to provide you with the best information about wine businesses all over Texas. Be sure to check out our website at texasundervine.com and follow us on our socials at Texas Under Vine to stay up on all the upcoming episodes. Please email us with any suggestions or feedback. Also, contact us if you're interested in donating, sponsoring, or advertising on the podcast, just to help us cover our expenses and bring even more great info to you in future episodes. Above all, travel safely, and most especially, drink responsibly. Don't forget to also check out the Texas Wine Lover website and their phone app. If you want to plan a trip to the wine destination I talked about in this episode, the site for Texas Wine Lover and their phone app that you can download will really help you organize a trip so you can go see them. You can check out all of the goodness that I got to experience while I was there. But as you're planning your trip, while you're on their website or their app, you can also find out things like accommodations, restaurants, and even some fun events and things that are going on at the wineries, and maybe even find one that you want to experience as part of your wine trip that you never even expected. So check them out. Again, it's txwinelover.com.